Coming up on Unpacked.
My pregnancy was super chilled.
My daughter was born just 5 days before my wedding.
I did not feel this joy that people described to me.
I felt like, oh my goodness, I'm so going to disappoint this child.
I was like, I'm going to crash my car into the barrier of this highway. I was feeling so worthless.
Postnatal or postpartum depression is not spoken about often, yet many mothers are suffering silently. Today's guests are here to share their stories. Let's unpack. Being a new mom may be overwhelming for some mothers, as it was for Litsoanelo Seturume from the Free State. The isolation from her loved ones during the global pandemic led to the 29-year-old experiencing feelings she had never felt before. Fortunate Zungu-Ludaka from Cloverdene was 20 years old when she gave birth to her second child, a baby girl. However, unlike her first birth story with her son, the realizations of raising a girl child took her back to her own childhood traumas. This is part one of the conversation. These are their stories. Let's unpack. Litsoanelo, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And the same to you, Fortunate. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So, Litsoanelo, let me start with you. Take me back to what was your pregnancy journey like?
My pregnancy was super chilled. I had, my child's pediatrician called it an uneventful pregnancy.
Yes.
Because I didn't have any issues. When I went to the scans, there were no issues found. Until the very end, I think the day before I gave birth, was when they found out that he was not getting enough oxygen from me. So then I had to be induced.
So just in terms of, you saying your pregnancy was uneventful, where were you emotionally and psychologically throughout the pregnancy?
I was very excited to be having a child. I didn't think that anything bad was going to come from it. I was looking forward to it. I was shopping and buying and just looking forward to having my child.
Was it your first?
Yes.
Your first.
Yeah.
Okay. And did you opt to, get all the info about what the baby's going to be and all of those things?
Yes, I did. So I wanted a surprise gender reveal.
Yes.
So when it came the time to go for the scan that would tell me the gender of my child, the doctor gave me a little envelope saying what gender the child would be. And I gave that envelope to my brother. And then he went and bought the smoke that would come out blue eventually, telling me that I'd have a boy.
And, you say that you were just all excited. So everything was wonderful up until now. You had to go in and get induced.
Yes, yeah.
So what happened then when they had to induce you into labor?
So the day that I went, I think I was 37 weeks pregnant, and I went into the clinic. I chose to give birth at a clinic and not in a hospital. And the midwife checked, she did all the measurements, and she had this perplexed look on her face. And I asked her, is the baby growing? And she was like, no. So we had to get a non-stress test done to find out what is going on with the baby. And the non-stress test came out fine, nothing was wrong. But she still wanted to find out why the baby was not growing, because at that point, at 37 weeks, the baby should have grown much larger than he was. So then we went to the ultrasound technician, which then found out that my placenta and umbilical cord was not giving the child enough oxygen. And then they scheduled me for an induction the following day. And that by that point, I had not booked a bed. So I booked the bed the same day, and I came back the following day in the morning for the induction.
So how did the delivery go?
So the induction did not take. I arrived at the clinic at 6 a.m. And I got the first dose of my inducing medicine at 8 a.m. And we went on until, I want to say, 7 p.m. That's almost 12 hours with there were contractions on the monitors, but I was not feeling any contractions. And so because the reason I was being induced is because they needed to get the child out ASAP. They then decided that I needed to go for an unplanned C-section.
And was it a C-section that didn't have any complications?
Other than the lights going off because of load shedding.
Wow, I can't even imagine the lights went off during your delivery.
Yes, my child was already out and I was being stitched back up and the lights went off because of load shedding. I was panicked, but my OBGYN was just like, he's almost finished. He just needs like 5 more minutes and that was fine.
Okay, so then baby is out. What was then that emotional experience like those first couple of days?
The minute the baby was born, the pediatrician brought him to me just to see him, but then she had to take him away immediately to give him oxygen because he was not getting enough oxygen. He actually didn't cry until a couple minutes later when he was already away from me, but I did not feel this joy that people described to me. It was sort of just like, oh, hey, okay.
So for you, you weren't like moved in the moment?
No, there were no tears. It was just like, hey, child, I'm your mom.
Okay. and did that in any way make you feel like,
Yeah, definitely.
this is weird?
I think the only person that told me that that might happen was my psychologist because she was like, don't psych yourself up because it might not happen the way that other people say that it happened. But I also think maybe the reason that that happened is I was honestly so high on the drugs that they gave me.
Yes.
And when I was wheeled back into our room, my partner was with our child. And then they put the baby on my chest. But I was like passing out and coming back and passing out and coming back and vomiting the whole night. It was just like a horrible experience.
And for you, I mean, I know you're saying like it was, hey, I'm your mom. When you were looking at baby and they were doing the, putting baby on your chest, which is supposed to be this whole bonding experience, how would you describe that experience for yourself?
I don't remember it very well because of the passing out and coming back to life. But I think I was feeling annoyed at the fact that I was not fully conscious to, have this moment. And eventually, because the midwife was there and the pediatrician was there to help him with his oxygen, he still had oxygen at this point, I was just like, can you please get the child off me because I'm scared that I'm going to drop him because I cannot hold him. But the pediatrician just held him there because he needed to be on my chest at that point.
And what was the reason that they said he needed to be on your chest?
Apparently, the skin-to-skin or kangaroo care is what would help him remember to breathe.
Yes.
Because he would be listening to me breathing and listening to the sound of my heartbeat.
Okay, and on your side, what was your pregnancy like?
Mine was very, very stressful. I became pregnant with my daughter when I was doing my first year at varsity. I was 19 and second child. And my daughter was born just 5 days before my wedding. So the whole 9 months leading up to that was quite hectic because first of all, I discovered that I'm pregnant doing first year as a second child. It's a lot to take in. So there was a bit of disappointment within myself, like, sure, I'm bringing another child. I'm not yet settled. So in terms of the whole, the whole pregnancy, I struggled a lot with my diet. I had no appetite. And at that time, I wasn't seeing any physician who would advise, like, make sure you eat, take vitamins and so forth. I just had the normal vitamins. So what I used to do, I would just to make sure that I eat, it would just like brown bread and Evo because the taste is very bland.
Yes.
Just to make sure that the baby does have something to eat. So it was quite stressful because school, pregnancy, second child. And at that time, my son was just over a year. So it's like you have a toddler and expecting another toddler. So it was quite very, very stressful for me.
And I can only imagine, just in terms of the circumstances that you were under that you're explaining, but also 19 is still young, you know, for now to take on the responsibility of having another child.
Yeah.
So what ended up actually happening, you know, in the build-up and delivery?
Closer to the delivery, I had a lot of Braxton hits, I think they're called. I think I went...
So it's like false contractions.
Yes.
But it feels real.
It feels real.
Yeah.
And I mean, this was my second child, so I kind of like know what to look out for. I go to the hospital, they have a look, they're like, well, there's nothing yet. I go back home, it happens again a week later. And about the third time, I told myself, okay, this is it. I'm just going to go to a different hospital so that they don't say it's not it again. My family was there to take me to hospital, so that was great. The giving birth was very different to my first child. With my son, it was very quick and easy. Like, I mean, I gave birth while the nurses were still trying to sort out the instruments that they were going to use on me. And
what?
I promise you. And the other nurse was like, this is not a ball, you don't just kick it, you know?
Yeah.
But with my daughter, it was very, very difficult emotionally. The contractions were very, very heavy. And just the emotion, it felt like a fight. So I give birth to her and they just lay her on my chest and immediately I cried. And I didn't cry with my son. With my daughter, I just shattered. My heart just shattered. And I felt like, oh my goodness, I'm so going to disappoint this child.
Oh, wow. So it wasn't tears of that love at first sight, I finally meet you. It was tears of...
Fear.
Oh.
Yeah, so I was very scared, like, I'm so going to disappoint her. I'm just so going to make her life miserable. She doesn't deserve me.
Oh, my gosh.
I think with my son, maybe it's because he was a boy, I felt like, okay, I don't have to be there like 100% because he's a male. His father will do that, you know, where I fall short. But with the girl, I had to be like, bring my A game in raising her. I couldn't leave anything to someone else and say, okay, they'll sort this one out. So I realized at that moment, like, maybe I'm not ready to be a mother to a girl.
You know, it's so, so deep what you're saying. I had a conversation on this show with single fathers that were speaking about how, you know, one of the gentlemen was saying how for him, it was so, he had to have a different mindset because he's having a daughter, knowing the world that we live in. Yeah. And inevitably, when him and his partner separated, he's the one that took the daughter because he said, only I can protect her the way that I can. So I find it interesting that the fears are a lot more when you're having a daughter. We know the country we live in. We know the statistics. We know all of that, the realities of being, you know, especially a young black woman or black girl in this country. But having said that, I'm curious, you know, do you feel like you had certain fears about having a son? Because I try to think of, I was scared of having a son versus being scared of having a daughter because I always said, I'm the strong woman, my child will model my behavior, but how am I going to model what being a great man is like? How am I going to teach this boy to not be, you know, the men we're afraid of?
Yeah.
Did you have those fears?
No, I definitely didn't. I think I knew that, yes, I can't teach him how to be a good man because I'm not a man, but I can teach him how to be a decent human, and I think that goes a long way.
Yes, definitely. So now you are in tears, baby's born, and then what happened next?
I wait for the family to come fetch me, but I am very much anxious because I realize like something has to change. This is bigger than me, or even if it's not bigger than me, it calls for a different version of me. And I wasn't ready for it. You know, I wasn't ready, but I was forced now to be ready. And I left the hospital. We had recently gotten married, like I said. Oh, we were going to get married 5 days later, yes. So I get married.
I mean, you actually had the wedding 5 days after giving birth?
Yes.
Wow.
I was 19. I mean, when you're 19, okay, I was 20 now.
I honestly would have thought that when the child is like on the way, that, you know, you're like, the wedding is postponed. Wow.
The thing is, with my daughter, we were expecting her to be born in Jan.
Yes.
We were not expecting her to come in December.
Wow.
So we planned the wedding for the 1st of January, thinking the baby will come sometime either mid-Jan or end of Jan. So, you know, it should be fine.
Yes.
That's why I didn't have even a white gown, because, I mean, I had a big tummy when we were planning, you know, preparing for everything. So I have the baby. I get married. And now that I'm older, I realize that that on its own was a lot, because getting married has its own emotions that go with it.
Yes.
Throw in a newborn, it's
and also just where were you hormonally, emotionally, to be going to be receiving people when, you know, as we say,
unfortunately, I didn't have that whole Mutswezi experience in terms of support of like, oh, now I feel dizzy, can someone bring me? No, I've always had to survive, you know, and my mind was always on that mode, I guess. So I took it as another tough experience that I will get through. So I think I neglected my own emotions at that time because of that mentality that, well, it's another one, another tough situation, I'll deal and I'll be fine, you know.
So where was baby during the whole wedding celebration?
The baby stayed with my mother at home, and I went and got married. And then my baby was so small. She was like so tiny. I came back and I breastfed.
Can I ask why it was so important for you to go ahead with the proceedings?
There was no reason for anything to stop. The baby didn't have any complications after being born. I didn't have any complications after birth. So there was really not really any reason. I didn't feel like we should stop. I was like, okay, everyone is okay. The baby is okay. Well, I was extremely glad that I didn't give birth on the day of the wedding. That would have been, you know, something.
Yes.
So I was like, okay, the baby is okay, good enough healthy enough to be at home. So we just.
What kind of support did you have, you know, as in throughout your pregnancy? Because you mentioned a psychologist speaking to you about what you may or may not feel.
So she was the biggest support. Like, I'd been seeing her before being pregnant, and then during my whole pregnancy, I was seeing her. But other than that, because my mother lives far away and my sister, it was just my twin brother. But he's living his best life.
Yes.
You know, he would actually, he would skip work and be like, my pregnant sister needs me, so I can't be at work. You know, he wasn't really somebody I could, you know, talk to about anything about pregnancy. Other than that, I had friends that had children that I'd speak to about being pregnant, how tired I was, and
So what kind of support did you have during your pregnancy?
I didn't have a lot of support because my mother lives far away and my sister too. Although my sister does not have children yet, but just having somebody that I trust, she wasn't there. But I did have my psychologist, and I was seeing her before I was pregnant and throughout my whole pregnancy. And then I have a lot of friends that had kids before I did. So I could speak to them about a lot of the things that I went through. I was extremely tired. I also had little appetite and
And from your side?
From my side, I think I was a bit flawed because having survived a lot of things personally, I just went on that survival mode. Like whether someone's there or not, I'm going to be okay. And also not expecting it. So if it was given, it was great. It wasn't given much. Honestly, it wasn't given much. And I think it's a flaw in our society where we can see someone is struggling, but we are thinking they need to come and ask for the support. We can't offer it because I think my family did see that it's quite a lot, but no one came and offered it. The support that was like at a time when it came, I was very offended by it. My then father-in-law said they're gonna take my son, who was like just 2 years old, to go and stay with them so that I can focus on being a good mother or present mother to my daughter. So he put his foot down and said, you can't do this. I mean, I was now 20. You are 20 years old. You are married. You have 2 kids one is a baby and one is a toddler. You need the help. And I think he knew I was going to say no because he said, we're just going to take him for Easter for visits. Easter weekend finishes. I'm like, okay, when is my son coming home? And then they're like, we actually found him a crash. And that broke my heart. It honestly did because I felt like, so they're not even going to give me a chance to do this.
Did you allow him to stay?
I wasn't given a choice. And they were very far in Pretoria, and I come from Davidson, East Rand. So I was like, I'm upset. And I spoke to my aunt about it, and she said, you know what, to be quite honest, they're right. They gave him the best care, and they gave him quite a great foundation in life, one that I probably couldn't have given him. He was at a good crash. He was a happy child. I mean, I saw him whenever I needed to see him or wanted to see him. Whenever I missed him, I would ask them to bring him, or they would fetch me from Davidson to Pretoria and stay maybe a week or 2. And, so that helped me. That was forceful, but it's what I needed. But other than that, there wasn't very much support.
So in hindsight, do you agree with their decision?
Now, yes, I do. I do.
Okay, so now talk to me about when did you start experiencing symptoms that for you were like, I think something is wrong?
I want to say during the first week? Yes, during the first week of my child being home, actually. He had jaundice and we had at-home care, which I was so grateful for. And I was struggling, but there was a nurse that came every single day to take his blood, to help with breastfeeding. And without her, I honestly don't know what I would have done, because I probably would have just given up on breastfeeding and gave him formula, because she told me what to do, how to do it, when to do it, how to eventually, when he's even 12 months, decrease milk, and how to wean him off breast milk if I need to or want to. So at 6 weeks was the last appointment that I had with my OBGYN, and he didn't really ask any questions about...
How are you doing?
Yeah, he was just, he just did what he had to do physically.
Yes.
And then he was like, okay, cool, your pap smear results, they'll phone you about your pap smear results. You're good to go for exercise, you can go for a walk. And then I started working at 6 weeks, which was a terrible mistake on my behalf, and taking cake orders, because I work from home and I make cakes. And on the drive back from delivering a cake one morning, I was like, I'm going to crash my car into the barrier of this highway.
Wow.
And...
It's okay. It's okay.
I don't want to ruin my makeup.
It's okay. So something in you felt like you want to crash your car into the barrier.
And driving here, actually, I thought to myself, the only reason I didn't do that is because I would have hurt other people around me. But if there was a bridge with a lake in it,
you would have gone.
Sure.
Can you describe for me what that emotion was that you were feeling when you were like, I want this to end?
I was feeling so worthless. Because I was struggling with sleep deprivation, still with breastfeeding. It was just so much because, yes, I had the help of the nurse who eventually left after, the jaundice subsided. But children are unpredictable. She gave me a great schedule, but it's not to say that he's going to stick to the schedule that I was given. So okay, I stuck to the schedule, but now you're up every hour on the hour. Like, what must I do? And now I need to work, but while I'm baking a cake, you're awake. You know what? There's nobody that can actually help me anyway, because I have to breastfeed. It's not like my partner can do that. I have to do people's orders. It's not like he can do that, you know.
If you had to, describe in words that come to your mind, what were the emotions that you were going throughout that period? What are the words that you would throw out?
I was angry. I think that was my go-to emotion. And I was angry because my child was not planned. So I was angry at myself, disappointed in myself, because I thought, how did I think that I would be able to keep another human alive? I was also angry because of the lockdown.
Yeah.
My mom, she lives in Lesotho. She was there. She came the day I told her that I'm going to be induced the following day. She literally shoved her clothes in a suitcase and took the next flight to Joburg. And then she stayed, I think, until the day we came back. And then she was like, okay, because, she came at such short notice, she needs to go finish off some work things. She'll be back in like a week or two. Yeah, in 2 weeks. And then lockdown happened after the 2 weeks, of course, and she couldn't come back. And then I only saw her again December last year.
Wow.
So
Which was how many months post-delivery?
Like 9?
Wow.
Yeah.
So you were without mom, which is a big thing.
Yeah. So I was without her. And yeah, I was angry, I was disappointed, I was exhausted. Yeah.
Was your partner aware of your feelings?
He wasn't. For a long time, he wasn't. Until I told him. And he was like, okay, no, you need to go back to see your therapist. And funny enough, she had sent an email the day before I told him, just like, like a email list thing. And I was like, okay, I'll send her I think she was letting us know that she is still working, but she's moved out of her office into like the Braai area of her home where we can socially distance. Otherwise, you can do it virtually. And so I was like, okay, I'll send her a WhatsApp and see what she says. And I did send her a WhatsApp, and she was like, sure, I've got time for you. She lives in the same neighborhood as I do. And I preferred to be with her in person. So she allowed for that to happen.
Within that period, was there a part of you that thought, this is, I'm suffering some form of postpartum or postnatal depression?
No. Even when I wanted to end my life, I just thought like, this is just something, I thought that like, this is the norm. This is what everybody goes through, and eventually it will pass.
Next time on Unpacked.
I also wanted to portray this, I'm fine, I'm strong.
I overdosed on pills.
Is it depression, or is it still postpartum depression?
If what I can give is not good enough, I'd rather give nothing.
My thought was that they're better off without me.
It's a lifelong commitment to do the work to heal yourself.
I can definitely say that years later, it was worth putting in the work.
Thank you so much for watching Unpacked with Relebogile Mabotja. Make sure you subscribe to my channel where you can get to watch more episodes. But more importantly, you can be part of our online community. Comment down below, share with us who you'd like to see on the show, or what story you'd like us to discuss. We love engaging with you. Keep it coming, and don't forget to subscribe.